Welcome to Mindful Drawing. I'm Robert, and I'll be your guide in this meditative practice that enters a space of mindfulness through the act of drawing. We'll do a quick introduction this week, get right into the practice. This one will engage with our senses, take our eyes out for a while, then bring them back as a guide for mapping a complex, probably wiry organic territory like you saw there as I entered the frame, and then see what we can find in it, how we can use both organic and regulating lines to bring two worlds together, find overlap between them, and maybe discover some new spaces and territories around. It'll be a fairly playful exercise, a lot of following the breath. You can go with my cue or at your own pace, as I may breathe a little slow, and I'm also talking. And then feel free at any time to breathe in and out at the depth and the speed that work for you and where you're at. We'll modulate it a little between a deeper, relaxing entrance and a more regulating kind of evenness and tempo to let us really absorb into the space of the drawing. I'm going to use a pen today. Anything will work. Pen, pencil, a pad of paper, a piece of Bristol, sketchbook. Go ahead and gather your supplies and establish your space. And let's draw together. Warm up will be an entering into our space of attention and awareness, like how we bring that to, in a sense, the way we move the hand and the way it marks on the page. We'll do an exercise that involves a lot of eyes closed and feeling out the pen movement. But for the first part, you can use eyes open or closed and draw some squiggly, curvy lines on the paper there. And they can just go back and forth, circle around, do all sorts of fluttery things. But as you do it, start to think about how you're holding the pen or pencil. If you're right-handed, is it in your right hand? You move the fingers up or down a little bit, feel out long extension of the pen, maybe really long extension. And whatever you're making in terms of marks don't matter too much. They're just to feel how that might change the sensation. Finding a place that's controllable for you, but also a little bit on the edge of maybe where you're used to working or where you're comfortable. And then start to move the hand around. If it doesn't draw, just pivoting, feeling from different angles, moving up and to the left, down to the right, crossing over the page, noticing that some may not draw, keeping the pen more upright, or if it's a pencil, you might have a little bit more flexibility, just letting that hand move all around while it moves a line all around. And just for some sensation grounding, continue it in the offhand, your other less predominant hand, left or right. Try to hold the pen about the same length from the base and move in a similar way, noticing that there may be more hitches or stutters as that hand may not be as used to the motion. And working with it, slowly come into a slower motion, finding a little bit of control in the attention to that action. Feeling out the last few movements that we've established a broad range, gotten the hands warmed up. To put that aside, as we'll do something similar, but maybe a few less scribbles, a little broader strokes, a little more slow and attentive. Give the hands a few good flexes in and out, just to incorporate that energy you've built up moving around, maybe a couple of rotations here and there. As we prepare for the longer exercise, get settled in the workspace, roll the shoulders forward, up, back and down a couple of times. You change the direction back and up, forward and down. Get them settled into their sockets. Move the back just a little, flex side to side, a little forward and back, settled into position. We'll spend a little time at the beginning, left hand, right hand, whichever feels comfortable to you, bringing the eyes closed, maybe feeling comfortable with the edges and space of the paper, finding somewhere kind of near the center to start. A couple of good inhalations and exhalations to ground and settle. And when you feel ready, similar to that warm-up, letting the pen with eyes closed engage with the paper, find the grip, and begin moving. Not slow, not fast, a comfortable pace. You may leave something like the pinky or a little bit of the hand on the page just as a guide, or fully separate and use just the tip of the pencil to start moving in any way that the hand, arm, and mind encourage that instrument to work. And we'll begin to take a few deep breath cycles to relax into this separated motion, become part of it without the eyes, breathing in to fill out the lungs, exhaling to become part of that space around you. And as you fill out the lungs on the next big cycle, notice the movement in that space of quieter inhalation and the exhalation. Notice the speed. Complete a few cycles of deep breaths, observing without the eyes influence, action, sensation, speed, pressure. And if you feel interested, you may switch hands and continue a little with that offhand, following those waves of breath in to establish holding of space, out to enter a little bit more into that space, in to open, out to quiet. Noticing some of the differences in those long places between the start of an inhalation and exhalation. The two hands symmetrical, but maybe very different. Wandering around that space of the paper, moving through that opening of the breath. Your mind and attention only present with the pen, pencil. And continue a couple of deep breaths, maybe keeping the pen moving or even taking a pause just to be in that space you're making. There should be plenty of lines on the paper at this point. After a couple more cycles of inhalation and exhalation, we'll open our eyes and engage with it. As you feel ready, prepare to take the deepest breath you've had all day. Really fill out the lungs. Hold a little bit at the top, maybe sip in just a bit more, and sigh it out. Let it exit, heavy, and the eyes slowly drift open, seeing what is there on the paper, probably a little ball, wiry, moving around. Can you notice where the right or the left hand may have been drawing? Perhaps they wind up kind of similar with the slightly extended grip. And in this, to even the breath, to bring it from that deep place into a more normal cycle, what we're going to do is map over this territory with a series of generally parallel lines. Might make some good time to move the hand vertical up and down the page, horizontal across the page, diagonal, and feel out a directionality of movement you might bring to these lines. They're going to be kind of a layered sequence. I think I'll go vertical for myself, whatever feels good for the shoulder, the wrist, and what you can reach. And each one of these will use a medium, natural inhalation as a starting point. Breathe in and begin drawing a kind of straight-ish line down, along, across the page on the exhalation. Noticing when the breath runs out, we'll do several of these. We have plenty to cycle into, breathing in to locate, out to draw another parallel-ish line. And as the breath completes, the line completes. In and out. Not too deep, not to the point of stressing at the end. Just a light attention and mindfulness to where that inhalation places the pen or pencil, where the exhalation guides its movement, letting the eyes keep some rhythm, parallel-ish, even-ish across the paper, and really taking that bound territory and slicing it up, giving it some degree of measure. In and out. An action of both mindfulness and relaxation into motion. And we'll work our way fully across whatever territory you made in that original exploration. It may be small and you may make it across quickly. If it's wide, take your time. If you finish across it early, you can continue the lines onto the page, further extending left and right, up and down. Or begin looking into that space, overlapping moving organic lines, layering, slicing straighter lines, and finding shapes that stand out to you. They may work between the layers, across and around them, letting the eyes come back into play and navigate through that collapsing, conflicting territory, becoming one space through our cycles of inhalation and exhalation. Now begin transitioning, looking through what came before and perhaps bringing a little emphasis to new shapes, things that stand out as regions, as little zones. They may only follow the curves or perhaps find an edge in some of the straight lines, but just beginning to give us place to look. Places to define in that space of separation, of emptiness that we explored through the first round of engaging the page, bringing mark to it. And as you trace along found edges, using that as an entrance back to the awareness of the tip of the pencil that we started with, the feeling of motion against the paper, the tracing along found routes, a guide. We don't have to know where the pen or pencil is going to go. We can follow it and bring our attention, our awareness to what the pen or pencil engage there on the paper. The feelings of texture, feeling of movement, speed, the changing of direction, each moment on a curvy line, a new sensation, a new mapping for the mind. Using that space we've opened with the breath, the warmth and flexibility we've opened with the wrists and the hands, to really feel through the act of drawing. And some things begin to express forward, pull out of the knots and wiggles. Some things drift further back, noise in the crowd. And we'll begin to phase into another portion of the drawing, bringing the conflict of the straight slicing lines together with the overlap and forming shapes that finish out your last few tracing regions. And we'll begin to look from those darker outlines, those secondary passes and completed thoughts, and trace some of their edges offset a little bit, so somewhere along the curve between one, two alternating or otherwise engagements with those crossing horizontals. I'll begin to stretch out some of the curves just for a little while, maybe bridging space of the slices. Add a little hatch so you can see if you're looking, but you can do that or just have them be new regions formed first by the edge of what's there, and then by a reconnection, a reintegration, and a little bit of texture, tone to record the action. Spend some time with that offset, shifting, repositioning along the edges of intersection. Those lines giving us place to start, defining places to end that may not always align with what was there, but bring new opportunity into it. They give us direction, movement, some regularity, another layer to what's present, and our mindfulness, attentiveness is in mimicking a curve or edge, extending it, tracing it a little far from its place, using a practice of drawing the curves, of redrawing them, of getting to know their shape and figure, and extend that into a synthetic new territory. And from there, we'll take a few moments, a few minutes to draw and work within it, bringing anything you find interesting from one edge out into space, along another edge, creating new territories. In the last few minutes, as we continue to explore that patchwork, the intersections, the sliding along and reconnecting with through those layers of regulation, the opening of the organic, noticing where you find liberty to play, to change the territory, where the edges or boundaries bring structure. Each of us at a different place, a different journey through that space we've made. Some may feel in conflict, the overriding of those smooth curves with straight lines, or the breaking of those long extensions with scribbles and wiggles. Different ways to engage with the space we make and inhabit, reflecting on how we respond to them, maybe a little different on the left or the right. A little different in a dense zone or an open territory. bringing that attention, now that you're in the drawing, to how you are engaging with it, just noticing it. No right or wrong way to do the drawing, just a platform for a practice of mindfulness, awareness in some form of expression. A chance to all the breath, the mediation and attention to our presence, to be a space for us to learn and engage. To open up and meditate a little on that way we operate in places of unknown or a little bit of discomfort, conflict. To see where the drawing can take us internally, and then through a few deep, calming breaths, let it be what it is, a drawing. Lines, curvy or straight, on a page of paper, ink, graphite, or some other medium, marking out some space, exercising our fingers and our hands, perhaps suggesting places and things here and there, or just a slowly coming together of lines to mark a new territory or world for a few moments before we bring ourselves away, before we slow the movement of the hand, make that conscious decision to close the pen or put down the pencil. Give ourselves a moment to take a couple of breaths and fill out again at the end like the beginning. To exhale whatever was in the exercise to its completion. And turn our eyes and attentions back out to our space, back out to whatever may come for the rest of the day. A curious one, aimless, without a purpose or representational agenda, no idea to have to pull into the mind, but a releasing motion of the hands, of feeling the territory, of understanding how the arms move, the fingers pick up sensation, maybe noticing with our eyes closed and using our less competent hand how we feel little bits of discomfort, how when we open them and bring breath and stillness to that space, we can see there's maybe a little difference between the two. It all comes together in a kind of organic winding of knots of new shapes, some figures that draw us in, others noise that shifts to the background. That regulating system, the straight lines, less common in the natural presence of things, bringing order and disruption, giving us opportunity and maybe a little friction as we read into ourselves through that calming space, look inwards to how we deal with complex territories, what we can do to map them, and then release into just a little bit of drawing, seeing where we go. If you join live or found this on YouTube, I thank you for being part of the mindful drawing experience. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up below. Please share with your friends. Let me know in the comments things you found or ideas about mindfulness you might want to explore through this active meditation of drawing. We've done a lot of these episodes, and each week I both enjoy and find interesting the challenge of the experience of coming up with a topic that uses simple technique but also may lead our way to a larger concept or meditation. It really comes down to the breath, of finding your own space of stillness, of opening up to that potential on the paper of expression, maybe a little creativity, hopefully a little fun, and some relaxation through a few minutes of giving yourself some time to play and explore and be present. And wherever you are, I hope you have a wonderful day or evening. Enjoy what you bring to yourself from this exercise. Remember to draw well. Thank you.